Today I will explain about the CRUD. So last time we already did the CRUD, which is C stands for create, R stands for read. So you can read the data from the database and then you can show into the web. And you learn the next step, which is create. So you can create a new data and then you can save it and you can show it. Now, I would like to teach you how to update. So suppose we have some data and I want to update some information from the users. So let's make a new function. Here we need to create a new function to update the member. In this case, I would like to make an update member function and I will put it into the user mgmt. If you still remember, you have the fuse.py. So I have the update member function, and yeah, you will see that here is a query. You will get all the members object that, oh, sorry, not all, but I would like to specify which ID that I need to get from the database. And then, okay, I will explain this one later. After I have this update member, so after I update the fuse.py, now I'm going to update the urls.py. You can see here I have one new link. The new link is to update one data. So in this case, I'm going to update a particular ID. So if you can see here, I'm going to update an ID, and yeah, the ID is an integer value, and I'm going to execute the update member and let the name be update member. After I have this update, I will check the list member, and now I'm going to add one more button. So you can see here, the first part you can add in the table. So the header, I'm going to add one more, which is update, and in the table itself, I'm going to add one more column, okay, and it is about update. So let's put this update. Okay. If you have the list member, if you have this list member, if you have the same line with me, you can put the line in the line 13. Okay, and then the next one, you can add this line after the member.email. So after the member.email, you can have one more, and you can put this TD or the cell. And let's try. I gave you the explanation here. So in some cases, you cannot run update member before you create the delete URL. Anyway, we can try. So you can refresh the page, and yeah, you will see update. There's one update button here. Let's say I want to update Mr. BBCC. So I can click. Now you will see those information, Mr. BBCC, acc.acc.com. Let's say I want to update the last name. So I would like to put the CC1, for example. So you can save. And now the name, the last name has been updated with CC1. Okay. So in the update section, we are going to update the member form. And in the member form, as you can see, we have member.objects.get ID equals to ID. You still remember what is it? We are going to get one ID. You still remember what is the difference between filter and get? Okay. Yeah, if we use get, then we will only see one result. If we use filter, then there will be multiple results. In this case, when I want to update data, I want to get only one data. So I use get. That's why when you are doing your assignment, the assignment 2, you will learn which is using get and which is using filter. And then next is when we have the form. So the form that we use is from the member form. So you see the form, new or update form. Okay. So the new or update form is from the member form. And in this case, we have two kind of parameters. The first is request.post or known. It means later on, after I finish inserting any values, it can be using post, or it can be just a new message, just a new type of form which is known. And if I'm using this member, so let be the instance of this form equals to the member. So the member here is from the query. So I input all the information of the members into the member form. If you still remember the member form here, is from the forms. In the member form, we use the model, which is from member, and the fields that you use is all. What does it mean by all? All means I'm going to use all the attributes. If, for example, you want to use only some of the attributes. Now you have salutation, first name, last name, and email. And when you update this, you will see all those things: salutation, first name, last name, and email. Actually, you can modify. Now all your data has been set as required. If it is required, then you need to put all those information. If it is not required, you can exclude some of the attributes. Let's say if you do not want to show your email, yeah, this one is not available because you put all the data as required. Okay. If you check these models means you need to input all the data in order to make it available or in order to run it. So that's why if you want to later on, if you make your field which is not required or which is not mandatory, then you can choose which field that you want to show. This is an option to show your form. Oh, wait, sorry. What is email? Yeah. Salutation, first name, last name, email. I check this is correct. Salutation, first name, last name, email. Oh, I guess I missed this one. Fields. Okay, I don't know why it is not work. Okay, I will check with this second condition why it does not work. But if you are using the all, it means you are using all attributes, so it works well. Yeah, if you are using all attributes, it is working well. And the same with the create. So it will check whether the form is valid. So you need to check whether all the information goes well with the additional information like the email, the last name, the first name. Okay. And then if you finish with this updating, you will go back to the list members. And this one will go to the member form.html. And let be the form equals to the form and let be the member equals to the member. So here, we are going to update the ID, and the ID is an integer value. So if you check on your web, after you click update, what you can see here is the ID number. When you click the ID number 2, it shows the link update 2. So if you are going to update the link number 1, then the integer ID here will be 1. Okay. So this ID represents the ID that you have in your database. So this is the ID. You can set the ID, for example, according to the last name or according to the email. But if you use that one, it will be more complicated. So now I'm just giving you one example. Let's use the ID from the database, which is the auto number integer. Yeah, for this purpose, I'm just adding the two additional section, which is the first is update for the header, and then the other is the column here. And as you might know, the URLs, the URL with the percent means I would like to call the update member. So what is update member here? It is the name that you set already in the URL s.py. And I'm giving a number, or I'm giving the member ID. So this member ID will be the ID that represent what is the ID that you want to modify. Because this ID is set here, and when we do the update member, in the update member we have one parameter. The parameter is the parameter ID. So that's why this ID goes to this ID. So we will check what is the ID that we want to get from the database, and those data will be in the member field. And this member will go to the member, and we will show this member into the form. Okay. So if I click the first, then ID number 1 will be shown in the form. If I click number 2, then it will be shown in the form, and the ID is number 2. Okay, so this is the explanation. So the last things that we can learn from here is how to delete. Delete member. In this case, we have the views.py. And let's make a new function here. So in this function, yeah, I have the delete member, and then let's find a member, and the member is from the database member .objects.get ID. Okay. And I would like to use this method. If the request method is post, then let's delete it. And then I will go back to the list members. Now in this case, I'm making a new HTML file, and the HTML file is member delete confirm. Okay. Now I'm making a new link again, this one. So this link is to delete a particular ID. So I will add one more URL. Okay. So it is to delete a respective ID. And now I'm making a delete member for this purpose. So after you have this delete, now, yeah, please pay attention on this line. Okay. In the HTML file, you need to add this 3 line. So if you have the member underbar form.html in a template. Okay. So you can open this one, member underbar form, and yeah, you can put one more button here. After the form, before the div, before ending the div, you can add these 3 lines. So after the form, okay, after the form and before ending the div, you can put this if. I guess you know what is the meaning by if. And this if is to check if the member exists, then you can delete. Because we have this member form for 2 purposes. The first, it is for create. What happens if it is create? Then the form will be blank. Okay. If it is blank, then there will be no information and you cannot delete. So if the member exists, you can show the button delete. If the member does not show, or if there is no member, it means if we want to create a new member, then you do not need to show the delete button. And as I explained to you, yeah, in the Bootstrap, yeah, we have the button default, or you can have the button danger. So if it is danger, then the color will be red. And if you are in the list member, info. So if it is info, then the color will be blue. Okay. This one is info and the color will be blue. Now let's make a new HTML file. And this HTML file is a new file, member underbar delete underbar confirm. So in the user mgmt, you can make a new HTML file, member underbar delete underbar confirm. And then you can replace with the code. And now you have the form. Okay. I will explain to you later. Now let's check. If suppose I have this data, okay, and maybe the ID number 2, I would like to delete it. Okay. So how can I delete this one? You can click here. Now you will see there's a button delete. If you delete this, then it will give you one statement. Are you sure to remove DB? So if you click delete, then it is deleted immediately. Now let me create a new member. Maybe Miss DDEE and email maybe ddee@ddee.com. And if you add more, what happened here? The ID becomes 3, right? The ID 2 has been deleted. So it will not be shown or it will not be used again. it will create a new ID information. So when you are making this kind of delete, so please pay attention. In this member form, as I mentioned to you, we are making the if function. Okay? So the if function is to check whether the member is already exists or not. If the member exists, then we can delete it. If the member does not exist, we cannot delete it. Now let's go to the member delete confirm. What does it mean? In the member delete confirm, it is to confirm whether you really want to delete that information or not. So the first, it is a form, and the form is using the CSRF token. Okay. So do you remember what is CSRF token? It is the same with this form. We have CSRF token in the member form. So whenever you make a form, the CSRF token will be necessary. It is to manage the privacy and the protection or the security protection. And with this kind of CSRF token, you can see here form.salutation, form.first name, form.last name, form.email. So this is the variable form that you obtain from the member form. How we can get this member form? We can get it from here. So the update member, we have form, and also the create member, we also have form. Okay. So in the member form here, we use the form. Okay, the data form, and the member form here, we also use the data form. Okay, and here there is a question. Are you sure to remove member dot first name? So I want to confirm again. If you want to delete the ID2, then I will get the first name. Who is the first name of that member? If you are sure to remove this one, then you will press the delete button. So it is using the btn danger. If you are not sure, you can just press cancel. So the cancel will be the window history back. It will return back to the member list. And now we are just using the bootstrap to address the format of the web page here. Okay. Okay, we know how to use the delete and update. We call the name update member, delete member, and we put the member.id, okay, and we put it in the between of the percentage. So this percent means this is the Django statement. So the overall of the CRUD example is something like this one. You can see that we make several functions. What are the functions? We make the list member functions. We make create member functions. we make the update member function and we make the delete member functions. And those functions are inside the use.py. And in the urls.py, we have 4 paths: member detail list, member insertion, member update, and member deletion. And in this system architecture, we have 3 HTML files: list member, member form, and member delete confirm. Okay, it means when you create a system architecture, you need to include all those things that you created. Maybe you will give questions, Professor. In the assignment 1, when I created HTML file, I have like 10 HTML files. Some of you have many HTML files. Okay. Then should I write all those things here? Yes. If you are using the, like what I explained to you, the iframe, the frame format. If you are using the frame, of course, you don't need to put all of them. You can just put the main frame, for example. And it really depends on you how you define the HTML file. Now I'm using those 3, and those 3 are the main for this system. So I explain those HTML file here. But if you are not using all the forms, so if some of the forms are like minor forms, then maybe you don't need to put here. But at the end, you need to show what kind of functions you have and what kind of path you have here. It's from the URLs. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 paths. You have 4 URLs. Then you also explain it in the system architecture. Okay. So you learn about the system architecture, and then you learn about the CRUD, and you learn about how to register the member, detail list, update, and delete. Okay, any question? The sequence diagram means you can design your flow. So for example, you can see the sequence diagram as an object interaction arranged in the time sequence. And it depicts the objects and classes involved in the scenario and the sequence of messages exchanged between the objects needed to carry out the functionality of the scenario. These diagrams are widely used by businessmen and software developers to document and understand requirements for new and existing systems. So in the sequence diagram, usually they refer to one kind of diagram. They call it UML. I think last time I explained the UML. UML means the Unified Modeling Language. And there are many kind of representation in the UML. In this sequence diagram, they mentioned that there is a kind of actor. So actors, an actor in a UML diagram represent a type of role. So the role, it can be a person, or it can be a group of person. It can be admin, it can be user, and etc. where it interacts the system and its object. We can also see lifelines. Lifeline is a name element which depicts an individual participation in the sequence diagram. So basically, each instance in the sequence diagram is represented by a lifeline. Lifeline elements are located at the top in the sequence diagram. So here is a lifeline. And usually there is a line representing where is the position that this lifeline will work. Comment. It is an object. Usually it is represented by a rectangle. This rectangle with a folded over corner. So this is the folded over corner as shown below. And the comment can be linked to the related object with dash line. So later we will also use like dash line for a particular element or lifelines. Difference between a lifeline and an actor. A lifeline always portrays an object internal to the system, whereas actors are used to depict the objects internal to the system. So for example, like this. I have a user, and a user, if they enter a theater, they need to insert a card. And then the user needs to select the date. After the user insert card and after the user select the date, then the theater, in this case, maybe it's like a kind of kiosk. It will show the offer seat. So what kind of seat? Where is the position, the seat that is still available? And then after the user know that, okay, I want to buy 2 seats, for example, then the user will submit the order and this lifeline will submit the order to the server. And after we have the submission to the server will return back the confirmation, and then it will show to the user that the submission has been received. So this kind of thing, we call it as a sequence diagram. Okay. And there can be also messages. So the messages is a communication between objects is depicted using messages. There are several messages here. I guess yep. I will stop here because due to the time limitation.